Hello and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, and this is the level 2 recording for July 28th. And this is, I'm going along with the basic structure of the advanced lessons on Teachable. This week, this is all about duality and the flying rainbow lasagna as the solution to transcending duality. So first, understand how so much of duality is programmed into our basic biology. So one part of it is just understanding our vision and our system of perception, that we're in these bodies that are binocular bodies. Most people have two eyes, and the two eyes are used in order to understand depth perception, that we use the instant and minute calculations that our system, not just your brain, but your system of perception takes the viewpoint from one eye and the viewpoint from the other eye and instantaneously makes the calculations to be able to determine how close is something in the physical reality, how far away is something from you. And that this might be something at this point in adulthood that many people do as such a natural part of their life. They just take it as a matter of course. However, these are parts of our body that literally bring us into this dualistic viewpoint of reality. Basically, dualism is thing versus thing. And it's not just left eye versus right eye. It's also in the system of perception on our retina. And I'm going to the whiteboard so I can draw a little something. So in the cells of your retina, like if these are all little cells that are all together, the way that you're able to perceive light is if a little photon comes along and stimulates this cell, and that cell then sends a signal to your brain that says, hey, there was like here I'm drawing a little light bulb, there was a little tiny bit of light that just came onto me. What these other cells do that I'm going to highlight in blue is they send a signal that is saying there's no light there. So it's like all of these cells that are around the cell that perceived send a signal that says no light, no light, no light. But this guy over here sends a signal that says light. It's basically like saying, it's like some cells get stimulated and they say we're seeing light, and some cells around those cells do not get stimulated and they say we're not seeing anything. So in the retina of your eye, we have a basic conversation that is happening between cells on a cellular level that says either I am seeing this or I'm not seeing this, and that this is part of the perception of our brain. It goes even more because we go into being able to see the edge of an object. Like here's the edge of my earlobe. The reason why we're able to perceive this edge, like a hard-edged object, this is where my earlobe stops and this is where space begins, is because of the difference in contrast between the light that is coming from my earlobe and the light that is not coming from my earlobe. So much of our perception is about thing versus thing and being able to create hard-edged objects. We're not really in a realm of hard-edged objects. We are really in a space, a higher dimensional space of uncollapsed waveforms. We're in a giant, I like to call it like a sea of cake batter. We are not in a world of hard-edged objects. However, when we look at that world of possibilities, just the act of looking and perceiving collapses those waveforms into a world that we interpret with our system of perception as being in existence. This is like saying we are literally the artists of our reality. This is the paintbrush of your mind, and you are, or the paintbrush of your imagination and perception. And we are using that paintbrush in order to create a vision of reality. And that's a literal creative process. So I've spoken a lot about the difference between organic, multicellular, beautiful humans versus a machine or a cyborg or an artificial intelligence system. Pardon me. And those systems, what they don't have that humanity has is the creative capacity. And our creative capacity is not just the capacity to grow a belly in our, grow a baby in our belly, right? It's not just that level of creativity, or even the level of creativity if you scratch off the skin cells of your epidermis, that then your body will create new skin cells, or you're constantly creating new hair cells. It's not even that level of creativity. It is the level of creativity that happens each moment as we are creating with the paintbrush of our mind. So I wrote this little story a long time ago. The people that had ovens in front of their eyes, it's like a little anecdote, the idea that we are surrounded by a sea of batter, and it's like cake batter that is like liquid, and we have ovens in front of our eyes that are like our system of perception. And everywhere we look, we are baking the cake batter into a physical, seemingly solid object that we can experience. So this is the difference between the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. I haven't done all the dimensions in teaching, but if people that are the advanced class, you guys know what I'm talking about. So the let's find a color. This is a dot. Dot is the 0th dimension. If I make any dot anywhere outside of the 0th dimension, and I connect it with a series of more dots, I get a line, which is the first dimension. And if I make many lines next to each other, eventually I get a plane, which is the second dimension. And if I stack up a whole bunch of planes on top of each other, eventually what I get is a cube. And the cube is the third dimension. And then I stump people by saying, point to the fourth dimension, because you can't point to it unless you point to a clock. So this is one train car of reality, and that's the third dimension. The fourth dimension is many train cars of reality next to one another. Here's train car, train car, train car, train car, train car. These are all simplified versions of cubes, and they're all connected to one another. And this is just like the line that we saw. And this keeps going, point, line, plane, point, line, plane. There's actually really good, I'll link to it in the homework. Rob Bryanton has some very good videos that are all about this point, line, plane postulate. So this line of train cars of reality, that is the fourth dimension. It's like French bread. If we have a long, skinny loaf of French bread, and here's one end, and here's the other end, and we chop it into pieces like this so that we can put some delicious, I don't know, smoked salmon or something on it. Each one of these little slices of bread is a moment. And we can slice time down to, like sub-seconds, nanoseconds, and we can get down to basically the Planck length. This is the smallest little slice of bread that we can make, or the smallest slice of time that we can make and still call it time, is the Planck length. And so here I am looking at this timeline of your life, like this is 0, birth, and this is death, at the end of your death. Oh, I don't know why that just erased everything that I was doing. Now it came back. I don't even know what's going on. Okay, fantastic technological things are happening. If we were to look down, if we put an eyeball over here where I'm making this line over here, and we were to look down the time tunnel, what it would look like is here's the present moment now. And then here, going back into the past, smaller and smaller, here's the moment before, the moment before, even down to when you were a little tiny baby and you were born back there. So this is the fourth dimension, which is like a timeline. But so the fourth dimension would be like a line. And then you want to say, well, then the fifth dimension would be what would happen if we lined up many timelines next to one another and created a time plane. And that's truthful and that's accurate according to the map, but it's also a little bit simplistic, because what really happens in the fifth dimension is that is like the bakery where the French bread is baked. And in the bakery, that's where we have flour and water and yeast and the actual apparatus, the oven, for actually making the dough into stuff. So the timelines, the train cars of reality, those are already physical, like dioramas that we can jump into. We jump from little train car to train car. How do those train cars get made? Who writes the script? Who sets the scene in the little diorama? Who puts the people in position? And the real answer is you and me. However, we have not been in control of our creative capacity for a very long amount of time. And I was talking about this in level 1. The whole idea of people saying, well, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. Like, all you have to do is make a wish and then it'll come true. This goes back to like fairy tale type of ideas, the world of mythological realm, where if you made a wish, it would come true. Here's a better question, a more logical question. Why do wishes not come true now? People are wishing all the time. Why does this not come true? And it's because people have been programmed with this idea that your wishes don't matter. Because what's actually happening is when you wish, or when you pray, or when you express an inner desire in your inner world, instead of you being able to effectively manifest that dough gets scooped up. It's kind of like you're emitting dough from your imagination, and that dough gets scooped up and morphed or hijacked or changed and put into a distorted reality creating machine. and that creates realities that are not what we actually want to be creating. Because I'm presuming here, but I presume that each one of us, organic multicellular beings, would like to create a reality where our bodies are healthy, everyone we know has a healthy body, all the plants and animals we're surrounded by have a healthy body. Like, none of us wake up in the morning and say, time to start imagining babies born with brain cancer, or time to start imagining profound environmental degradation. None of us do that. What most people do is they're like, well, I got to get up in the morning and grab my coffee and drive to my job. I don't like this traffic and I don't like to have to pollute with the car, but I got to do it. It's part of life. So it's like saying, well, you don't really want to be creating this cake or this bread with your dough. However, you are being forced to, or in some way you are having to participate in a reality creation that you don't want to. So this is the whole idea. Flying rainbow lasagna is like the pencil with an eraser, so that you can now create a different reality. It is a tool for empowerment. I understand people's skepticism. They're like, wait, Aurora, who are you? What are you offering? What is this cupcake that you're giving to us? What do I want to eat this? What is filled with this cupcake? And that is good. Skepticism is very good. This is not a tool to further constrain you in any way. In fact, it is meant to be a tool that people can use in order to transcend their limitations. And basically, the idea is transcending duality. I versus I, thing versus thing. How about in level 1, I was speaking extensively about the ego versus the context. The cell membrane. Cell membrane says, this is my border, this is my outside edge, and I, me, what I define as me is what's inside of that border. And I, whatever is not inside that border, is that ain't me. That's all you. That ain't me. And this is human society. Like, when I'm here and I'm like, I'm Aurora. I'm sane. I got it together. I got my SHIT together. I'm good. But like you're all crazy. You're all out there. You're all crazy. But this is not actually accurate. The truth is that we are all connected on a planetary level. We're connected on a multicellular level. We're connected on the level of consciousness, and we're connected on the level of perception. So if we say that this is a sea of uncollapsed waveforms and my observership is collapsing those waveforms, part of my creative act is creating all of you, and vice versa. This is a big part of it, because I'm not just trying to give people like a huge solipsism program where you think I'm the center of everything and I'm making the world. You are making the world, and so are all of these other beautiful musicians. That's why I say this is a symphony, and you're not the only form of life making reality. Consciousness creates reality. I've got 3 trillion gut bacteria in my intestines right now, and each one of them is creating reality. Isn't that amazing? The yeasts on the surface of my skin are all creating reality. I'm not trying to take that away from them at all. I'm trying to say, let's create a beautiful reality structure together. And that's the same thing that I'm saying to the rest of macroscopic human society, and that we can transform this planet by having this new approach. So I say this all the time, you're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool of your thoughts. Your thoughts affect other people, and other people's thoughts affect you. The vibrating strings of your DNA affect other people, just as their vibrating strings affect you too. I'm just having a little drink here. Pardon me, thank you. Sympathetic vibration is the name for what happens when you have a guitar. I don't have a guitar, but I want a guitar. And when you pluck one string, and even though you haven't touched any of the other strings physically, they vibrate in response to the string that you did stimulate. This is what is happening to humanity, that your DNA are like, one's DNA are like vibrating strings. So if I stimulate this string over here by, whatever, anything, giving it an idea, the motion of that string vibrating affects this person, and this person, and this person, and this person. There's some interesting Russian experiments on this, Russian scientists that basically put DNA into a test tube and then had another test tube with no DNA in it. And the activity, the dance movements, the energy and the emissions of the DNA that was in one test tube affected the fluid that was in the other test tube as if it had had DNA in it. So it's like saying that non-local vibration affected the other material. It did not have to touch. It did not have to directly call it on the phone or anything like that. It was non-local. This is why I say it's like a genetic symphony. I'm touching my piano over here. We all play these notes with our vibrating strings of our DNA, and then what we're doing with our individual DNA is affecting everyone else, and everyone else is affecting us. So this is also very similar to any of these little science demonstrations where there's many, many metronomes that are all set up on a table, and they're all going at various different rates and they're not synchronized. And at a certain point, they all end up being synchronized. And that's because the table is the common realm that they share together. And the ones that are going fast lose a little bit of energy through the table and send to the ones that are going slow. And the same thing happens in the opposite direction. So all of these metronomes end up synchronizing and equalizing their energy because they are attached to the common realm. In our setup, the common realm is physical matter. This realm that I'm touching with my finger here, this red realm. So you're an expert, you're the advanced class. You don't need me to tell you that red is the physical realm. And in this flying rainbow lasagna model, in this shape, red is one of the only places where particles and forces and manifested aspects of consciousness meet and interact. See, the red areas meet and interact. Hey, look at that. There's a big fat gap. I'm putting my pencil there. There's a gap between orange. There's a gap there. They don't actually meet. And orange is the emotional realm. So that means in order for my emotions to interact with your emotions, my emotions have to come through the physical realm. They got to come through my physical body. And then maybe I might say something or sing something or give you some food that represents an emotion, and then you feel the emotion. Because if I say, I love you, then I'm giving you an emotion through verbalized language and through the expression of my physical body. And similarly, if I punch you in the face, then I'm saying I'm giving you an emotion through the expression of my physical body, right? And if you look at this diagram here, this physical diagram, one of the only other places where all of the aspects of reality meet and interact is the convergence point. So this place that is the source that emanates our consciousness and also the destination that we circulate back to there, that place is where we also meet and can interact and share ideas and energy and particles and forces and interact with one another. So those are the only two places, and it fits also with this sculpture too. It just might be a little bit harder to decipher the map. That central convergence point, that is the place that I'm pointing to with my finger where everybody lives. That's the source and that's the destination. That's where we all come from, and that's where we get to meet and interact and do what we want to do together. And we also do the same thing out here. This would be like the level of the physicality where I put my finger right out here. So the idea is that that's why we transfer our consciousness through all of these layers of reality, as I did in lesson 1 3 weeks ago, that this is energy that is being stepped down through different layers of density until it gets to the physical realm and can actually be manifested and interacted with. Okay, transcending duality. So this is a tool for transcending duality, and I'll speak about it in terms of energy and entropy. I spoke about that last week. That central convergence point is analogous to the 0th dimension or the presence of everything, and that's like total energy. If we scooped up all of the energy in the entire world, all of the suns and all the planets and all of the gas and all of the petroleum and all of the everything that can be used as energy, and we put it together and condensed it together into a super, super dense condensed place, then that would be that convergence point at the center of the yellow sculpture. It's the 0th dimension. It's everythingness. It's infinity. It's everything that can possibly be in existence. And when we have nothingness, the complete polar opposite of that, even though I'm trying to get into non-duality, so I'm not trying to get us to think about the opposite of energy. But if we were to take all of the energy away from matter, so basically it's like saying, and I said this before also, matter comes from the root word for mother, meaning this is the material world that gives birth to us in a higher dimensional format. And what our entire planet is going through, and we are going through as individuals and as a human culture and as a entire solar system, is a transcendence of the limitations of being submerged in physical matter. On the one hand, physical matter in this physical realm allows us to meet and interact and share not only emotions, but also intellect. Like if I want to share something intellectually, I have to do it through the physical realm. Or if I want to share some heart energy or some communication energy or some insight, I have to do it through the physical realm. This is the place where we are able to interact effectively and share all these things. However, the idea of flying rainbow lasagna means that this convergence point can have slightly different perspectives when it's in different positions. Just like my right eye and my left eye can have slightly different viewpoints of the world because they're in slightly different positions. So energy can be what happens when we have this structure superpositioned in one position. Like when I say superpositioning, it means jumping up and down until they overlap. One position, hey, I'm in a state of total energy. Now I'm in a state of total entropy. Energy, entropy, energy, entropy. But I'm not trying to give you more duality. I'm trying to tell you that energy and entropy are both two states of unity consciousness. And this goes back to some beings that are supposed to go to the state of entropy. And I spoke about that last week, that when you hit the membrane of death, you're actually not supposed to exist for a very long amount of time, like some slow time release medicine that lasts for a very long time. Here, I'll go and I'll draw it. What you're supposed to do is immediately dissolve. So if this is the time vortex, and this is the membrane of death that I'm highlighting in black, and I'm making it super exaggerated, and let's say you're this little blue dot of consciousness and you've gone up, 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 and here you hit the membrane of death and you're stuck there. Well, you're not actually supposed to stay stuck there for forever. What is supposed to happen is you're supposed to unravel like a genetic sweater. You're supposed to unravel. And we pull all of your threads so that now you're just a bunch of unfurled threads, and then you go back to the beginning and you start again. That process of unraveling, it's like the unmaking of you, the unmaking of your ego structure. It's supposed to go fast. It's not supposed to take 50 billion years or a very, very long amount of time, because energy is supposed to circulate around this structure. Now I'll draw it. So I'm going to draw a shorthand simplified version of this yellow sculpture. This is the convergence point in the middle. This is the cross section. So energy is supposed to come from here and go out like this, converge, it coalesce here in the physical realm as physical actual matter, and then return to the source, out from the source, and then return to the source as the destination. And this area that we traveled through with the blue thing here, this area that I'm highlighting in black, that's the membrane of death. It's supposed to be a clear area. It's supposed to be like a hallway, like a transit point between worlds. It's not supposed to be a place that is filled up with people that live there for hundreds or thousands or millions of years, but that's what it has become. So imagine if you have a hallway in your house and you're supposed to be able to get from your kitchen to your living room, but instead there's squatters and they put tents there, and they got like a little campfire and they're cooking hot dogs and they're living there, and they're not supposed to. And it's because they are supposed to be unmade. They are supposed to go into a state of total entropy, not to be horrible to anyone, but when you die, you're supposed to go into a state of total entropy, because we love our loved ones, and when they die, we want to think of them as being alive and being on a cloud and strumming a harp or something like that, or doing their favorite things. It's not actually loving to envision them like that. The most loving thing is to envision them as being unmade and going into a state of total entropy. Entropy means loss of energy. They're supposed to lose all of that energy, and that means becoming frozen. When you lose energy, your molecules don't move around anymore. Your molecules stop moving and become frozen, and you stop moving through time. And what has been happening is we've been having energetic bleed through with occupiers of the interstices. We're not actually supposed to have energy that is stuck there and squatters living there, but we've got that because of this, I want to say, malformed, the way that things have been set up for a very long time that is not correct. And so right now, what we're experiencing on the surface of Earth, that is the symptom of this non-correctness. We've been experiencing it in this solar system, the destruction of the planet that is now the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, the destruction of the magnetosphere of Mars, the destruction of the magnetosphere of Venus. These are all evidences of this imbalance just in our own solar system. And I have to laugh now when people are like, oh yeah, Earth is quarantined because you got a bad fear virus and there's something wrong with you. No, that's actually not truthful at all. That's totally blame the victim mentality. It's like saying you deserved it because you walked down that dark alley wearing that outfit, and then you're not allowed to, say what happened to you. Like, that's not truthful at all. What actually happened was our solar system is like a family, and many of the other members of this family have been raped and murdered. And now that same rapist is here trying to harm our planet. However, flying rainbow lasagna means that we can do something other than just lay there and be a victim. This is what each one of us can do with our own genetic code, and what we can do as a society, and what we can do as a planet in order to transcend those limitations. So about 10 or 20,000 years ago, our planet was invaded. I'm sorry to give you this negative information. It can be emotionally perturbing. But yes, a bunch of uninvited invaders came into the genetic code. They didn't necessarily come in a spaceship. They came in a consciousness vehicle, and they came and they inserted themselves into our genetic code. And this is also why I understand I'm on a traumatized planet. I'm on a planet where everyone here has experienced some level of abuse, rape, trauma, meaning something has come inside of you that was infected. That's what Gaia is saying. It's a very good word, that something was not invited, yet has come here. And so this is also like saying it's analogous to your physical body. Your body can have an invader come inside of the cell that's called a virus. And the virus takes over the natural dance of your DNA in the nucleus. And it says, don't dance like you want to dance. Dance like I want you to dance, and make more of me. And that's what's been happening for about the past 10 or 20,000 years. And this also happens to relate to what I was saying about reality creation. It's not just that your physical body has been domesticated. That's happened. Like the reason why we are in this state of being where we have to eat physical food and live as we do in houses. Why are we not like wild animals? Why are we not like Sasquatch running around in the woods? And, why are we not sun gazers who eat nothing but pure sunlight? And the answer is because our genes have been genetically modified so that we cannot live in that wild, undomesticated state. If we lived in that wild, undomesticated state, we would navigate the time field very effectively. We would all be on that central core timeline. Death would be the aberration, the thing that doesn't exist. If somebody died, we'd be like, they died? Like, that's not supposed to happen. Here in this world, in this time and place, everybody is taught that death is normal and natural and is a part of life. And I'm here to teach you that that's not actually accurate. But I don't want you to think that if someone dies in your life, that means that they failed. I'll go back into this. I did this last week also. The idea of overlapping time fields. So if we have one time cone that is like this, and let's say this is person A, and these are all of their red timelines, and of course these are simplifications, you know that this is shorthand, and this is their longity-long infinity timeline that goes all the way up to infinity. And this person is person B, and this is the shape of their life, and they have all of these timelines. This is their path of least likelihood, and these are all of their other timelines. And now I'm going to highlight in black the area of coincidence. These are where these two lives can overlap and touch. So this person over here, this red person, they have this line over here that is their ascended master timeline, their infinity timeline. It's inevitable. They're going to get there. If they're, let's say their awareness is over here, it might look from this person's perspective, the blue person, as if the red person is dead. Because look, this timeline, look, it ended back here. According to the blue person, the red person died where my pen is making a big fat black line. However, according to the red person, their consciousness lived for many, many, many years until they got up to here, and they hit the membrane of death over here. And everybody has this inevitable line of being an ascended master. This is the inevitability that you will reach that level. So if you really want to think of someone who has died on your timeline, and you want to think good thoughts about them, don't think about them as living endlessly as a frozen, like a smashed bug on the windshield on the membrane of death. You can envision them being alive on aspects of the timeline that don't overlap with you. You can imagine them being alive on this path of least likelihood. I would say I would recommend against putting the mental energy into imagining them in a traditional afterlife. And let's talk about religion. And I have been saying that religion is a long con. No offense to anybody that has a faith or is a part of a established earth religion. And I have a cross and I wear it because I'm connected to Christ consciousness, but not to an actual church or the teachings of the Christian church. So the whole idea is, where did we get the idea of afterlife from? From those same genetic invaders that came here and changed our perception by taking away the higher faculties, and they also changed our experience of life by creating death, and then they also programmed us with religion that gave us the narrative structure of where do you go after you die. If you're a good person, you get patted on the head and you go to Christian heaven. If you're a bad person, then you get consigned to Christian hell. And that's all occupying the membrane. That's all stuff that is experienced on the membrane. And so blah, blah, blah. Someone asked, and I'm going to just keep on answering this question over and over because they asked in the YouTube comments, and I wanted to just say, yes, some guy is understanding bleeding reality. Is reality bleed through? Let me just say this. What you experience in your life, like what I experience in my life as Aurora, when I die, I should not have to carry that with me to the next place. I take the essence of what I experienced and the good stuff that gets refined out of this experience of being here, but I don't have to take with me, like, this is my sweater that I wear because I'm Aurora. Like that, and when you meet me in another format, you won't be like, oh, I recognize you because of your sweater. You'll recognize me because of my energy, because of my energetic signature, because of my persona. Like I could have a completely different way of making art, but it would still feel like this. And you'd say, I know that feeling. That's that person that used to have that body, but I'm not this person anymore. So I used to know someone in Kingston, New York. Kingston is a very old historical town. It was like from the 1600s, and he lived in this historic building. And he told me some ghost stories, and they're basically consciousness residues. And one of them was a woman in colonial garb who was picking up like a casserole tray from the table and bringing it over to the table at the side of the room and putting it down. That's what she's doing for like 400 years. That consciousness residue has been picking up a casserole dish and turning and walking across the room and putting it in a different spot. Like, that's not something that I want anyone to have to do for 400 years, whether I like you or whether I don't like you. That's like horribly repetitive and totally unhealthy and not fun to have to do that. So why should that be, like I say, like a slow release time capsule on the membrane of death, slowly dissolving, slowly dissolving? It's not actually benevolent to envision a person living like that. That's the dark magic. That's the distortion of the time field, is basically slowing down the entropy process. Taking the person that has physically died, and instead of saying, I snap my fingers, you instantaneously lose all of your energy. It's like draining all of your energy down to zero and now start again at the beginning. And if it were like that, the membrane of death would be clear. All of that energy could circulate around the torus very easily. However, it's not been behaving in that way. It's because we've got squatters in the hallway that are slowing down and impeding the flow of energy. And the area that they live in is what we would define as hell. It's what we would define as the realm between realms. In other cultures, it would be defined as the bardo. In the Tibetan Buddhism, it's bardo thodol, or the realm of limbo, or in ancient Egypt, it would be called the duat, D-U-A-T, crossing the duat, that this was the realm between realms, the membrane between worlds. And a lot of these non-Christian religions describe it as a confusing realm, that a lot of dead people are confused. They don't know if they're alive. They don't know where they are. They don't know where they're supposed to go. They are consciousness residues that are meant to be put to rest, to be in a state of entropy, not in a state of constant excitation. And so the best thing is for those beings to go into a state of entropy, and then they go back around to the beginning. But we're now getting to this point where we don't have to endlessly recycle over and over in order to transcend this level of reality. Flying rainbow lasagna means that you can activate or reactivate your higher faculties. Clear the windshield of your car. It's encrusted with mud. You can't actually see where you're driving. That's why you keep on hitting the membrane of death. If you can actually see, then it's amazing. If you can actually also turn your steering wheel and go in a new direction. This is called becoming a genetic virtuoso, because your steering wheel is your DNA and its dance. As I drew in level 1, and I'll draw it again just in case anybody is accessing this out of order and not to bore the students that have been here for the whole time. Thank you for everybody who's been here for the whole time. Train cars of reality in red, simplification. Green squiggles are DNA connecting the train cars of reality from moment to moment. And it's these little dance movements here that connect us from moment to moment and make us experience a particular reality. So when humanity's genes were squashed, what it did was it squashed one's events, the events that you can experience. It created the necessity of death. It basically said, I'm going to squash your genes. Now you're going to experience death. And it took away the capacity to experience certain other events. That's like saying the great script writer, the script that you were given with before the genetic degradation had all sorts of edits, all sorts of changes to it were made, and then you were not given the capacity to change that script. Flying rainbow lasagna means that you can change the script of your reality. And I say you're not swimming in your own private kiddie pool, you're connected contextually to a larger reality of other musicians that are also playing in the band. So if you want to start changing reality, I applaud that, and please play the right notes so that you sound good with the rest of the band. Please first become a virtuoso of your own body and learn to play your own instrument, and then find the other musicians to jam with who are also ready to play with other musicians. And those musicians can be human. They can also be animals. They can be plants. They can be microbes. I was in my garden on the patio this morning, and I was doing the flying rainbow lasagna dance with a bunch of beautiful plants. And we shared our ideas and our energy together, and created a beautiful genetic song. And those, I mean, you can share the, like, you can do this with animals and with food. All right, so let's also, I have a whole teaching about food. This is level 1. I'm just going to say this very briefly. People often criticize me because I'm not a vegetarian, and I'm not trying to tell anyone else what to eat. And that's part of like the freedom of your own body and taking care of yourself and being your own artist. Choose your own colors, choose your own style of painting. I'm not going to tell you what to eat. However, I will tell you that there is an effective way to eat, that mostly in this time and place, people eat in a very distracted way, meaning they're not paying attention. They're not using their tendril of attention to actually feel and sense what they're eating in their mouth and what it feels like to go into their tummy. And that what you can actually do as the most effective way to eat is, when you're having an experience of food, take a mental recording, because you won't always have a body like this that requires physical food to eat. Take a mental recording like I did of my friend's wonderful fried chicken at their holiday party 5 years ago. I can recall that, and if we could plug in mind to mind, I would share that fried chicken with you, because I remembered all the sensations of it and how delicious it was. And that practice, that is what we are here to do. We're here to have emotional experiences, to eat food. Eating food is a metaphor for having emotional experiences. And you can speak to the plants and animals that gave you their food. You're eating someone else's DNA, and that's just like vibrating sympathetically, right? Like, this is this string that I've plucked, and then these other strings are vibrating sympathetically. So if you are eating a piece of an animal or a piece of a plant, your DNA can vibrate that plant or animal DNA, and you can vibrate it in gratitude. And you can say, thank you for giving me your DNA and coming inside of me and being connected to me directly in the physicality. So you can connect consciousness to plants and animals and microbes. You can connect physically through the attention when you eat. What I'm trying to say, most people eat in a distracted manner, like they are watching TV or looking at something on the computer or eating while they drive, and they're not actually connecting with the DNA of the organisms that actually gave them the food. And many people in this time and place have a sense of guilt. Like, I'm not allowed to be eating other living things. It's part of life. You're here. I went through all this guilt. I wanted to eat nothing but pure sunlight, but you have to eat physical food in order to be here. So if you're going to eat physical food, how are you going to do it? And you honor the lives of the other beings that gave you their life so that you can be alive by thanking them while you eat. And so part of that is paying attention. If someone was going to eat your muscle fibers, wouldn't you want them to pay attention to you while they were doing it? Instead of watching some movie on TV, I would want them to pay attention to me. So that is a big part of it. I don't tell people what to eat, but I will encourage you to eat with attention. Pay attention with your inner tendril to the sensations and feelings of the food that you're eating. And also, I know that some people, like I have one friend who's a vegetarian only because she said, I started to be able to talk to the chickens while I was eating them, and it freaked me out too much. I understand that. It can be almost too much. We need to eat life in order to sustain our life until we make this transition into the higher dimensional state, and then we won't have to eat physical food anymore. So please be at peace with that. And also, let me just check my time super fast. I think it's time for me to hop into the Q&A, and there's lots and lots of comments over here. Hold on. Let me scroll. Yes, I'll say that one more time. I encourage, and I'll share the link. Rob Bryanton, Bryanton, he does a series called Imagining the 10 Dimensions. There's some beautiful animations as part of it, and he explains very well a beautiful depiction of visualizing higher dimensional space. Going to more chat, going back in here. Questions. Kimmy says, Aurora, I FRL with the redwood trees in the Avenue of the Giants yesterday. It was beautiful and calming. That is a beautiful thing. So I connected with the redwood trees when I was living up in Northern California, and they were all around my house. And I like to joke, like, it's like Bluetooth. Once you sync up with the trees, you don't have to lose that connection just because you become physically further away. So I am still connected to those beautiful redwood trees. And here, the trees on our planet, they are all connected on a huge network. It's like saying your computers are all connected together. So what one tree is thinking and learning from others, they all spread outward. So if you flying rainbow lasagna with the trees that are near you in your yard or your park, you're by association flying rainbow lasagna-ing with all of the other trees that are on the planet. So down here where I am right now, I got palm trees outside of my window, not the giant redwoods. I FRL with the palm trees, and they send their ideas outward. It is basically, we are connecting to the symphony of life. Play some music. Connecting to the symphony of life. And I think a big teaching of the human ego is that you're separate from the world, and that most industrialized humans feel very separate from nature. That humans have this sense of being not a plant or an animal, it's kind of like the invaders have affected one's perception and made it feel like you're not actually a part of this world, but you're actually a part of this world. There's 50 different types of fungus that live on your big toe that are just like the fungus that live in the garden. You're a part of this world. You're not separate from it just because you live in a house, with aluminum siding, and you don't live in a hut that is made out of a mud. And perhaps that is one of the challenges of us being able to live in this way that looks so separated from nature, but to mentally remember that we are connected and to foster that connection. Yeah, you're understanding everything is food for something else. That's being connected to the symphony. And there's nothing wrong about that, because I understand I'm on a traumatized planet where everyone is like, stop eating me, because literally from infancy, your consciousness is being nibbled away at, and you don't get to be free, and you don't get to be the person that you really want to be. So some people are like, I want to be a vegetarian so that I can stop eating other animals. And I got to tell you, even if you're a vegetarian, even if you're a vegan, you've got microbes in your tummy, and they all have consciousness. And in order for you to be alive, you literally digest them and affect their consciousness. There's no way ethically for you not to harm animals. Like an animal is a single-celled organism, is still an animal. Like you are still, how about if you ferment something? If you make kimchi and you're a vegan, I'm not criticizing vegans, I'm asking you to look deeper into your practice. If you make kimchi, you are essentially exploiting many, many microbes, which you then eat in order to, nourish yourself and put in flora into your own intestines. Please, instead of judging yourself and others, accept that you are a part of this interconnected web of life, and let's all act respectfully towards one another. Should a vegan not ferment? Should a vegan not eat fermented foods? Guess what? You can't get around it, because the probiotics in your tummy are the only reason why we can stay alive. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be able to absorb micronutrients from your environment. So it's basically like understanding we are all connected, and there's no way to get around that. Alexandra says, thank you immensely. She needs to make dinner, and she's going to eat with awareness and consciousness. I think that's a really good practice. Like, I'm going to wrap this up soon. I'm just going to make sure I got all the questions. But that's actually one of the food teaching is level 1, and I haven't harped on it that much, but I think it's a really important thing. And this is a mindfulness teaching that each one of us can practice every day. And I'll say, like, I'm not a perfect person. Sometimes I eat while I'm watching Facebook, or I have to do 2 things at once, but I really try to only eat with consciousness and only eat with intention. And when I'm eating, to send those nutrients to the places in my body that it actually needs to go, and to integrate it into this body. And it has actually taken many, many years for me to develop that practice, because, like, I'm telling you, when I first came into this body, I just wanted to eat nothing but sunlight and not have to deal with physical food. And I had to learn about physical food, and I had to learn about genetically modified ingredients. I had to learn about what not to eat in order to, be safe and healthy in this place. So yes, yeah, it is a huge challenge to have a body. And so the other thing is to be the owner operator of your own body, not having someone else telling you what to do. Like, I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't eat, but you figure out the things that work for you. Okay, I was speaking all about non-duality, and this level 2 teaching was all about non-duality. And I hope that I got there with this. The idea of the inside becoming the outside, and the outside becoming the inside, or an oscillation between the unformed and the formed, or energy consciousness and matter, or some of these other things, energy and entropy, and constantly jumping back and forth. So this purple dot is constantly jumping back and forth. And as it jumps back and forth, it creates this vibration across a membrane that basically makes it so that the inside can now talk to the outside. And that's what we are doing. When we eat flying rainbow lasagna, it means it's not just my own personal interior world. It's my interior world connecting to the exterior world that's full of all of you guys. And then when you do the flying rainbow lasagna, you are connecting your interior world of consciousness and thoughts and ideas and dreams and desires to my outer world where I exist. Someone's got some questions over here. Kimmy says, does the way Earth oscillates in FRL, how does that affect our dance? What a beautiful question. Our planet right now is in the process of transforming its magnetosphere energy field into a flying rainbow lasagna. Let me see if I can super fast find, I think I've got this. I think I know where I can find this image. Yes. Oh, it's here. Okay, well, here's a, no. Sorry, I'm scrolling. Here. Got it. This is the painting that I'm trying to show you. It's called Birth of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And what we have is Earth's ordinarily toroidal energy field, these little dots that are going around the edge there. And the magnetosphere is transforming from that torus into this central flying rainbow lasagna shape. So that is what our planet is doing right now. That's why I say it's like we're giving birth. We're like, Lamaze, the contractions are happening, the baby's coming, the head is coming out. We're giving birth right now, because if I'm flying rainbow lasagnaing all of the little bacteria that live on my body and inside of my intestines all have to do a new dance also, just in order to be a part of me. So in order for us to continue to be on this planet and continue to occupy this experience in this realm, we have to transform. This is what I was saying. I do not foresee it as a north to south, south to north pole flip, which is what a lot of people simplistically are expecting or interpreting, and also through the filter of fear of the previous experience of what happened at the end of Atlantis, that there was crustal displacement, that there was a change in the magnetic field, that there was a change in what we would call magnetic north, and that it created catastrophic changes. And people, it's like if you're in a car accident or you get raped, that you think the same thing is going to happen over and over. But we can have a different experience. It's the corrective experience. Instead of south, north to north, south, what if we change it to inside and outside become communicating realms? This is a different experience, that this is the type of pole shift that I am experiencing and advocating and wanting for others to imagine and envision. You have a paintbrush of your mind. You don't have to imagine and envision babies with brain cancer or crustal displacement and catastrophes. You can actually envision a completely different level of reality and experience of reality. If we all flying rainbow lasagnaed and made our interior realm of imagination and emotion suddenly manifested outside, I mean, I know a lot of people have to do self-cultivation and do your laundry inside before you start manifesting outside. But if we could do that, we could have a utopia. We could have a beautiful, amazing world that is all about like a giant collaborative art and music project. Exactly. But Zephyr's saying inner work. In order for us to work together effectively as artists and musicians, we need to do the inner work, heal the ego. Because if I'm playing a C, I'm like, that's my note. I'm playing a C. I know what I'm doing. And if you're like, you're playing a C and it's hurting my feelings, my ego feels diminished by your C. I'm like, I'm playing the right note. And you're like, I feel diminished by your right note. That means somebody's got to do some inner work so that they can collaborate with the rest of the symphony. And that's just like saying this. If someone had a really wonderful, successful record album, or they got into a big museum with their artwork or whatever, and you're like, they're getting into a big museum with their artwork. It's like, they played the right notes. They did the right thing. And I know we talked about Abraham Vortex and whether we're in a distorted time field. Yes, we're in a distorted time field, and dark magic has elevated some people to realms that they're not supposed to be at. But what I'm talking about is as we move into the future of this collaboration, we're supposed to be all supporting one another in our artistic expressions. And if you have a wonderful creative expression, if it's wonderful and successful, it's like you earned it and I'm totally supporting you and happy that you're having that experience, and then you reflect that back to me. This is the type of economy that I'm talking about. You know something? Oh, I'll just do this very briefly. I wanted to say this. It costs nothing for most of us to support one another, like to share videos, to speak well of one another's work. If there's someone who inspires you, who's well-known or who's not well-known, who's in obscurity, you can say to other people that you know, I saw this wonderful video, blah, blah person, you should check them out. You should check out their work. Like, it literally costs nothing to do something like that. You don't have to spend money in order to share that you were inspired by someone else's work. And imagine the more that we do that. If someone that I know who's a dancer inspires me, I say to everyone, look at this wonderful person, look at the wonderful dance that they're doing over here. You should all know about this, or other artists, or other musicians, or other visionaries, or other thinkers, that it's to get out of that sense of the wounded ego that's like, why is everyone else getting attention instead of me? And instead say, we're all musicians in this symphony. Let's all make it so that we are playing the best notes and helping one another to play the best notes. Literally, this is how we transform the economy. We go from, like I was saying, instead of buying a shirt that's made in China, I'm going to buy a shirt that my friend makes, and I'm going to spend $60 at her store instead. And this is how we keep our ecosystem of the meadow alive and going. So I'm going to check to make sure I've gotten all the questions and comments, and then I'm going to finish the recording. That's exactly right. Kimmy is saying the definition of connectedness. Someone is making a joke about Earth being flat. I will tell you that I am not a proponent of flat Earth theory in any way. I'll just leave it at that. And Charlotte is saying that darn shadow work has been intense lately. I totally get it. We got to do the dirty laundry. We got to wash out the dirty underwear in order to be able to manifest the inside as the outside. And the more clear that we become inside, the better the dance party becomes. And it's really a cosmic dance party. That's what we're doing. We are dancing with microbes and elementals. You can dance with minerals. You can dance with a quartz crystal. Quartz crystals emit vibrations. We can all do this dance together. And the more that we do it together, and it's also, it is transcending the ego, because all of a sudden we begin to identify with a larger state. We identify, I'm not just one musician, I'm not just one violinist, I'm actually the whole symphony. And I want the whole symphony to sound good, not just my little solo. Oh, and this person is saying, I think the Earth is shaped like a Mobius strip. Perhaps you're right on that. So I think that's an interesting comment to end on. I'm going to finish the recording for right now. Let me go on over here. I'm going to say thank you to everyone who tuned in and who watched and who added their ideas. It's been very wonderful. So let me just end for right now.